In the heart of a bustling city where gleaming skyscrapers reached ambitiously for the sky, stood Tasha's hotel, a gleaming testament to dreams realized and barriers shattered. It was more than just a building of polished marble, warm lighting, and impeccable service. It was a symbol of perseverance of a woman who had carved out a place for herself in an industry often guarded by tradition and skepticism. Tasha, a self-made CEO, carried with her the echoes of a childhood steeped in determination and quiet defiance, where every challenge was met with grit and an unshakable belief in her vision. From the early days of juggling multiple jobs to fund her education, to late nights poring over business plans and industry manuals, she had built her empire piece by painstaking piece, often standing alone in boardrooms dominated by voices that doubted her presence. The prejudice she faced was subtle yet relentless, whispers about not fitting the profile, skeptical glances that questioned her expertise, and moments when doors closed just as she approached. But Tasha's resilience was forged in those moments, her resolve hardening like steel tempered by fire. Walking through the grand lobby of her hotel, she took in the soft murmur of satisfied guests, the delicate clink of glasses in the restaurant, the polished floors reflecting the warm glow of chandeliers, a living, breathing manifestation of her lifelong labor. Every detail had been chosen with care, every challenge overcome a silent victory. For Tasha, this hotel was not merely a business, it was a legacy, a beacon for others who dared to dream beyond the limits imposed by society. Her success wasn't just measured in profits or accolades, but in the lives she touched, employees she mentored, guests who felt welcomed and valued, and communities that found opportunity through her outreach programs. The journey had been far from easy. She recalled the countless times her ideas were dismissed in meetings, the uncomfortable questions about her background rather than her qualifications, the rare occasions when industry peers treated her as an anomaly rather than a colleague. Yet, with every setback, Tasha's commitment only deepened. She knew that her triumph was not hers alone, but belonged to the countless voices that had been silenced or sidelined. Her story was a narrative of breaking glass ceilings, but also of building new foundations for those who would follow. One evening, as she stood overlooking the city skyline from the hotel's rooftop garden, a place she had designed to inspire calm and connection, Tasha reflected on how far she had come. The challenges remained. Prejudice didn't vanish overnight, but so did the strength she carried. She was proof that leadership wasn't defined by lineage or privilege, but by courage, vision, and relentless work. In the quiet moments, she allowed herself pride, not arrogance, but a deep, steady joy rooted in knowing she had claimed her place in a world that once tried to exclude her. Her hotel thrived not because it was the most opulent or the oldest, but because it was a space where authenticity and excellence met, where every guest felt seen, and every employee valued. Tasha's legacy was etched not just in glass and steel, but in the hearts of those who believed in possibility. As the city lights flickered below and the night air filled with promise, she smiled, an unspoken vow to continue breaking barriers, to keep building, and to lead with a grace born from struggle and triumph alike. The hotel lobby buzzed with the lively rhythm of a busy afternoon, the chatter of guests blending with the steady clink of coffee cups and the soft hum of elevators. Tasha moved with practiced grace through the crowd, her mind focused on the countless details that kept the sprawling establishment running smoothly. From staff schedules to guest requests, every decision weighed carefully under the weight of responsibility. She was proud of the place she managed, a role she had fought hard to earn through years of dedication, resilience, and an unwavering belief in her own capabilities. But today her world was about to be shattered in the most public and humiliating way. Without warning, Robert stormed into the lobby, a man whose presence commanded attention not because of warmth or respect, but because of his brash arrogance and ruthless hunger for control. His sharp eyes scanned the room until they locked on Tasha, his expression hardening into a mask of disdain. In a voice loud enough to halt conversations and draw every eye, he launched into a scathing accusation, blaming her for mismanaging the hotel and jeopardizing the business's reputation. The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable a blow that echoed off the marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Guests paused mid-step, staff froze in place, and whispers rippled like a rising tide. Tasha felt the heat of their gazes, the weight of humiliation pressing down like a physical force, but she refused to crumble. Robert's next command cut deeper, a blunt order for her to leave the premises immediately. The demand was a public stripping away of authority, a spectacle designed not just to remove her from power, but to break her spirit in front of everyone. Shock flashed across the faces of loyal employees and guests alike, disbelief mingling with sympathy as the scene unfolded. Yet in the midst of the chaos, Tasha's resolve crystallized. She straightened her shoulders, met Robert's cold stare with unwavering dignity, and gathered her things with quiet determination. This moment, raw and painful, was not the end of her story but a harsh crucible, forging a deeper strength. As she walked out of the hotel lobby, every step echoed a silent promise, not of defeat, but of a fierce, unyielding fight to reclaim her place, her respect, and the future she refused to surrender. The room was steeped in an unsettling silence, heavy and palpable, as if the air itself had thickened in the wake of the confrontation. For a moment, time seemed to suspend. The clinking of glasses, the hum of background chatter, and even the rustle of silk dresses all faded into nothingness. Staff and guests alike stood frozen, their faces painted with expressions of shock, disbelief, and an unspoken confusion. The harshness of what had just unfolded rippled through the crowd like an invisible wave, leaving everyone stunned and unsure how to respond. At the center of it all was Tasha, who felt the sting of betrayal and injustice pierce her like a sudden icy gust of wind. The words, cutting, deliberate, and public, had landed on her with brutal force, reverberating deep within her heart and mind. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the room, weighing her, judging her, some filled with pity, others with disdain or smug satisfaction. Yet despite the overwhelming hurt that threatened to overwhelm her, Tasha refused to let the moment consume her. The initial shock that gripped her body was rapidly replaced by a quiet, burning resolve that ignited somewhere deep in her core. She had faced hardship before, moments of doubt, rejection, and marginalization that could have easily broken her spirit. But this public betrayal, this stark reminder of the injustice still embedded within the gilded walls around her, was a call to arms, not a surrender. She took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of the room's attention press down on her, but she did not flinch. Slowly, deliberately, she straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and composed herself with the grace and strength that had carried her through every trial in her life. In that charged silence, her eyes glimmered with a quiet defiance, reflecting the fierce determination that now drove her forward. It was a look that said, without a single word, that she would not be defined or diminished by this moment. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had not shattered her resolve. The staff who had witnessed the scene glanced at one another, their own faces etched with shock and sympathy. Some of them admired Tasha's resilience, while others wrestled with their own conflicted emotions, caught between loyalty, fear, and the desire for change. Guests who had come to enjoy an evening of elegance and celebration now found themselves confronted with an uncomfortable truth. Beneath the glittering surface lay currents of cruelty and exclusion that too often remained hidden, but were no less real. In that room full of wealth and influence, the confrontation exposed a fracture, a painful glimpse into the divide between appearances and reality. Yet amidst the lingering tension, Tasha's quiet strength planted a seed of hope. Her unwavering stance was a reminder that injustice, no matter how deeply entrenched, could be challenged. She understood that the path ahead would be fraught with obstacles, battles fought not only in boardrooms and courtrooms but in hearts and minds. It was a fight that required courage, persistence, and an unshakable belief in the possibility of change. This moment of shock and silence was not an end but a beginning, the fragile calm before a storm of transformation. As the murmurs gradually returned and the room began to stir, Tasha stood tall, her gaze steady and purposeful. She knew that healing would take time, that voices would need to be raised, and that every small step forward would be hard won. But in that moment, amidst the stunned silence, she embraced the challenge with open eyes and an open heart. The fight for justice was just beginning, and Tasha was ready, not with anger or vengeance, but with the clarity of purpose and the unwavering strength to turn silence into power. Her courage inspired those around her, quietly urging them to confront their own fears and prejudices, and to join her in the pursuit of a fairer, more compassionate world. The betrayal she had suffered was a harsh blow, but it became the catalyst for a journey that would define her legacy. Through the storm of injustice and the shadows of doubt, Tasha would rise, a beacon of resilience and hope, refusing to be silenced or broken. In the end, her story was not just one of pain but of triumph, a testament to the human spirit's extraordinary capacity to endure, to heal, and to ignite change in the face of adversity. Behind the closed door of her office, bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp and away from the polished facades of the corporate world, Tasha sat alone with the weight of the day pressing heavily upon her. Outside, the buzz of the city carried on. Meetings concluded, deals brokered, and lives lived as if the walls that enclosed her were no barrier at all. But inside that quiet space, Tasha was confronted with a battle far more personal and profound than any contract or quarterly report. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, a journey marked by relentless challenges, invisible obstacles, and the harsh realities of navigating a world that often refused to see her as the leader she was. As a black woman in an environment shaped largely by privilege and exclusion, Tasha's path had never been easy. From the very beginning, she had faced a mosaic of barriers, subtle slights, dismissive attitudes, and the persistent question of whether she truly belonged in the upper echelons of power. These barriers were not always visible to others, but to Tasha, they were as tangible as the chair beneath her and the desk before her. Each instance of being underestimated, each moment when her expertise was questioned or her authority subtly undermined, had accumulated like a slow burn inside her. There were times when the frustration threatened to consume her, when the isolation felt unbearable, and when the pressure to prove herself seemed relentless. Yet through it all, Tasha had found a way to persevere. She had learned to wield her anger not as a weapon against others, but as a wellspring of strength and clarity. Tonight, as she sat in the solitude of her office, that anger rose again, not as bitterness or despair, but as a fierce resolve. It was the fire that had sustained her through sleepless nights and challenging days, the spark that reminded her why she fought so hard and what she stood for. She thought about the countless sacrifices she and many before her had made, the late nights balancing work and family, the moments of self-doubt she had overcome, the times she had to silence the voice that urged her to shrink herself, to fit into spaces never designed for her. She remembered the faces of mentors who believed in her, the community that lifted her when the road grew rough, and the legacy she hoped to build, not just for herself, but for the generations of women who would come after her. In that moment, Tasha understood that her anger was not just personal. It was a reflection of a larger struggle against systems that had long marginalized voices like hers. It was a call to action, a reminder that complacency was not an option. The corporate world could be ruthless, but so was she. She allowed herself a deep breath, closing her eyes briefly to gather her thoughts. The noise of doubt and distraction faded, replaced by a singular clarity. This was her moment to reclaim control, to shift the narrative, and to lead with the boldness that had always defined her. With renewed purpose, Tasha began outlining a plan, a strategic, daring move that would not only secure her position within the company, but also challenge the very structures that sought to limit her. It was a plan born of careful calculation and unshakable confidence, one that leveraged every bit of her experience, intellect, and courage. The risks were significant, but so was the potential to change the game entirely. She knew that to succeed, she would have to navigate treacherous waters, confront entrenched interests, and stand firm against inevitable opposition. But she also knew that the greatest victories often came from the boldest moves. As the night deepened and the city lights outside flickered like distant stars, Tasha felt a profound transformation within herself. The room that had once felt like a refuge from the world now pulsed with the energy of possibility. She was no longer simply reacting to the challenges imposed on her. She was shaping her destiny on her own terms. In this quiet, powerful moment, Tasha embodied more than resilience. She embodied leadership, vision, and the unbreakable spirit of a woman determined to rise above the limitations others tried to place on her. She was not just surviving the system, she was preparing to change it, and as dawn approached, she rose from her chair with a steady heart and a clear mind, ready to face whatever came next. Her journey had been long and difficult, but Tasha knew it was far from over. With courage as her compass and strength as her guide, she was poised to lead not just herself but others into a new era, one where barriers would be dismantled, voices would be heard, and power would be redefined. This was the story of a woman gathering strength in the shadows, preparing to step into the light and claim the future she was always meant to have. Tasha stood in the grand lobby of the hotel, the place she had nurtured and grown with painstaking care over the years. The polished marble floors, the gleaming chandeliers, and the hushed murmur of guests all bore witness to countless moments of triumph and trial. Yet beneath the surface, an undercurrent of complacency and disrespect had taken root among the staff, silent betrayals that chipped away at the very foundation of what Tasha had built. The moments of careless neglect, the whispered dismissals, and the growing distance between her vision and their actions had finally reached a tipping point. With a steady breath and a heart heavy yet resolute, Tasha made a decision that would shock everyone and redefine the future of the hotel. It was not born from anger alone, but from a profound desire to reclaim her dream and remind everyone, herself included, that greatness requires unwavering commitment and respect. She would fire the entire staff. The words echoed in her mind, bold and absolute, a sweeping act that symbolized both an end and a beginning. It was a statement, a refusal to tolerate mediocrity or disrespect any longer, and a demand for a fresh start built on renewed passion and accountability. As Tasha called each member of the staff to deliver the news, her voice was steady, tempered with a mix of sorrow and strength. She understood the weight of what she was doing, the uncertainty it would bring, but she also knew it was necessary. The hotel was more than bricks and mortar. It was a living, breathing entity that deserved devotion, pride, and honor. With every dismissal, Tasha felt the heavy cost of leadership, but also the promise of rebirth. In that moment, her resolve crystallized into something fierce and unyielding, a powerful reminder that true leadership demands hard choices, and that respect must be earned, nurtured, and fiercely protected. The lobby, once filled with familiar faces and routine, now stood as a blank canvas, waiting for the next chapter of Tasha's vision to be painted with bold strokes of integrity, passion, and renewal. The conference room was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that buzzed with anticipation and an unspoken tension. Normally a space filled with lively brainstorming sessions, casual conversations, and the occasional laughter, today it held a heavier air. The fluorescent lights overhead cast a stark glow, illuminating the faces of the staff who entered one by one, their footsteps echoing softly against the polished floor. Whispers trailed behind them, low murmurs woven with speculation and unease. Something was different, something serious. Tasha, the company's CEO and the heart of the organization, had called this meeting unexpectedly. Known for her sharp intellect, relentless drive, and fierce loyalty to her team, she commanded respect, not just because of her position, but because of the genuine care she showed for her people and the vision they shared. Over the years, she had nurtured the company from a small startup into a thriving force, all while fostering a culture built on trust, respect, and shared commitment. Yet today, the weight on her shoulders was undeniable. Today, she had to confront something painful, a fracture in that trust. As the last employee took a seat and the murmurs faded into a tense hush, Tasha stepped into the room, her posture strong but her eyes revealing the storm within. She paused, letting the silence settle fully before she spoke. Her voice, steady but laced with quiet emotion, sliced through the stillness. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began, her gaze sweeping across the room, meeting the anxious eyes of her team. "What I have to say today is not easy, but it's necessary." The staff exchanged nervous glances. They had always known Tasha as a leader who valued honesty and transparency, but this felt different, heavier, more consequential. The room braced itself. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Tasha continued, "about what makes this company more than just a business. It's the people. It's the loyalty we owe one another, the respect we must maintain. These aren't just words. They are the foundation upon which everything here is built." Her voice grew firmer, more resolute. Unfortunately, that foundation has been shaken. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Faces turned toward each other, brows furrowed. What could she mean? Tasha took a deep breath, steadying herself. Over recent months, I've witnessed actions, choices that betray those values. When respect is compromised, when loyalty wavers, the entire team suffers. I cannot and will not allow those fractures to grow. Her eyes glistened with a mix of sorrow and determination. Therefore, after careful consideration, I have made the difficult decision to part ways with certain members of our team whose actions have threatened the trust and unity we all rely on. The announcement landed like a thunderclap. Gasps echoed around the room. Some employees stiffened, others blinked in disbelief. The emotional gravity of the moment settled over everyone, a tangible force pressing against their chests. This wasn't just a routine company update or a strategic pivot. It was a reckoning. Tasha's voice softened, but her words remained unwavering. I understand this is painful, for those leaving and for those who remain. It's painful because it means change, disruption, and loss. But sometimes growth demands discomfort. Sometimes the health of a family requires hard choices. She paused, letting the meaning sink in. We owe it to ourselves and to the future of this company to protect what we have built. That means holding one another accountable. That means standing firm in our values. As she spoke, some eyes shimmered with tears, others fixed on her with quiet respect and understanding. The room felt raw, vulnerable, yet alive with an undercurrent of resilience. It was clear that Tasha's decision, though harsh, was rooted in love and a fierce commitment to the collective good. One of the senior managers, a longtime member of the team, finally broke the silence with a slow nod. Thank you, Tasha, for your honesty. It's not easy, but we trust you. Others murmured their agreement, their expressions a mix of sorrow for their departing colleagues and renewed determination to carry forward the company's mission with integrity intact. Tasha allowed herself a brief, bittersweet smile. I want everyone here to know that this is not the end, it's a new beginning. A chance to rebuild, refocus, and renew our commitment to one another. She stepped closer to the table, her voice gaining warmth and conviction. We are stronger when we stand together. When loyalty is real and respect is earned. We are stronger when every member of this team holds themselves and each other to the highest standards. Her words settled over the room like a balm. The sting of loss remained, but it was tempered by hope. A promise that the future, though uncertain, was bright because it would be built on a foundation more solid than ever before. As the meeting drew to a close, the staff rose slowly, some wiping away tears, others exchanging supportive glances. The atmosphere was heavy but infused with a shared sense of purpose and resolve. Outside the room, the world would continue in its relentless pace, but within these walls, something profound had shifted. Tasha lingered for a moment longer, her heart aching yet steady. She knew the path ahead would be challenging, filled with tough decisions and hard conversations. But she also knew that true leadership was not about avoiding pain. It was about facing it head-on, with courage, compassion, and an unbreakable commitment to what mattered most. And as her team filtered out, united anew by the difficult but empowering reckoning, Tasha felt a quiet certainty settle within her. This painful chapter was the crucible in which their strongest, most authentic selves would be forged. In the aftermath of the scandal that shook the business world and challenged the very foundations of her career, Tasha found herself navigating a terrain far more complex and difficult than any boardroom negotiation. The backlash against her decision to expose corruption and sever ties with powerful interests was swift and relentless. Public opinion was divided. While many celebrated her courage and leadership, others whispered doubts and criticisms that cut deeply. The harsh glare of the media spotlight seemed unyielding, and the weight of expectations bore down on her shoulders with a force she hadn't fully anticipated. The phone calls questioning her judgment, the pointed articles casting shadows over her motives, and the subtle coldness from former allies all added to an emotional toll that threatened to erode her confidence. Yet, despite the storm raging outside, it was within the walls of her personal life that Tasha found the refuge and strength she desperately needed. Her family, her steadfast anchor through every challenge, stood firmly by her side. Their unwavering belief in her character and vision provided a sanctuary from the public judgment. They reminded her of the values she embodied long before the headlines, of the integrity that had driven her decisions, and the compassion that had shaped her leadership. Late nights were softened by their presence. Gentle words of encouragement from her mother, candid conversations with siblings who understood the weight she carried, and quiet moments with her partner, whose steady support grounded her amid the chaos. These moments of connection were not just comfort but a lifeline, anchoring her in her humanity when the pressures of leadership threatened to make her feel isolated and overwhelmed. Tasha's closest friends also played a crucial role in this fragile balancing act. They offered more than just sympathy. They provided a safe space where she could be vulnerable without fear of judgment, over cups of coffee and long walks in the park. They listened as she voiced her fears, doubts, and frustrations. They reminded her that leadership was never meant to be solitary, and that strength included asking for help when needed. Their presence was a constant reminder that she was not alone, that her vision mattered, and that the fight for justice and transparency was worth every sacrifice. The emotional toll of these struggles was undeniable. There were nights when Tasha lay awake, the silence of her bedroom filled only by the hum of distant city lights, wrestling with questions about whether she had done the right thing. The gnawing worry about the future of the hotel she had worked so hard to build, the fear of how the scandal might affect the livelihoods of her employees, and the loneliness that came with bearing the burden of such high-stakes decisions pressed heavily on her heart. She felt the sting of isolation that so often accompanies leadership, especially for a woman challenging entrenched power structures. Yet, even in her moments of doubt, a fierce determination burned within her, a refusal to let fear or criticism derail the vision she held so dear. That vision was more than a business plan or a luxury hotel brand. It was a promise of transformation. Tasha dreamed of a future where her hotel stood not only as a symbol of elegance and comfort, but as a beacon of integrity, innovation, and community. She envisioned a place where employees were valued as partners, where sustainability and social responsibility were woven into the very fabric of the business, and where guests experienced more than just hospitality. They experienced respect and dignity. This vision became her guiding light, a steady compass that helped her navigate the darkest days. Despite the pressure, Tasha remained focused on her mission, channeling her energy into tangible action. She convened her leadership team to reinforce the hotel's commitment to transparency and ethical practices, ensuring that every decision reflected the values she championed. She launched initiatives to support her staff, recognizing that the scandal had ripple effects far beyond the headlines. Through it all, she maintained a fierce commitment to innovation, seeking ways to set new industry standards rather than merely reacting to crisis. This journey through personal struggle was not a linear path. There were setbacks and moments of profound exhaustion, days when the weight of responsibility felt almost unbearable. But through every challenge, Tasha's resilience grew stronger. She learned that vulnerability was not weakness but a source of power, that leaning on others was essential, and that true leadership meant embracing the full spectrum of human experience. Strength and doubt, certainty and fear, courage and compassion. In facing the fallout, Tasha's story became one of transformation, not just for the hotel or the scandal, but for herself. She emerged from the crucible of adversity with a deeper understanding of what it meant to lead with heart and integrity. Her family's love and her friends' unwavering support were constant reminders that no matter how high the stakes, she was never truly alone. And as she looked toward the future, she carried with her not only the scars of struggle but the profound hope that through perseverance and grace, she could build something enduring, something that honored both her dreams and the people who believed in her. In the end, Tasha's personal struggles were not just trials to be endured, but chapters in a larger story of growth, resilience, and unwavering vision. They revealed the often unseen emotional landscape behind leadership and reminded everyone that the true measure of success lies not only in what one achieves, but in how one rises after falling. Through every challenge, Tasha's journey illuminated a timeless truth, that with support, courage, and focus, even the heaviest burdens can be transformed into a foundation for lasting change. Tasha's journey toward realizing her vision for the hotel was far from a smooth path. Beneath the surface of her public achievements simmered a complex web of personal struggles that tested her resolve in ways no one could see. The backlash she faced wasn't merely a matter of business disagreements or professional critiques. It seeped into the very fabric of her identity, challenging her sense of self and the strength she had painstakingly built over the years. The criticisms came swiftly and sharply, from unexpected quarters and familiar faces alike, creating an emotional tempest that threatened to overwhelm her. Voices questioned her decisions, her leadership, and even her worthiness to carry the legacy she had vowed to honor and transform. The weight of judgment bore down heavily, casting long shadows of doubt and exhaustion. Yet amidst this turmoil, Tasha found her greatest source of strength not in the accolades or the boardroom victories, but in the steadfast support of her family and closest friends. These were the people who saw beyond the public image and the headlines. They saw Tasha in her most vulnerable moments, the woman behind the role, struggling yet unbroken. Their unwavering belief in her and her vision became a lifeline, a reminder that she was not isolated in her fight. In their presence, she could lay down her defenses, share her fears, and draw courage from their collective faith. They offered more than just encouragement. They provided a refuge where her spirit could rest and rejuvenate, a place where hope was nurtured even when the world outside felt cold and unforgiving. This support network was instrumental as Tasha navigated the emotional toll that came with the backlash. There were days when the pressure felt suffocating, when the weight of expectations and criticism threatened to crush her. But every moment of despair was met with a word of reassurance, a gesture of kindness, a reminder that she was fighting not just for herself, but for a future that extended beyond her own ambitions. With their love as a foundation, she found the resilience to face each challenge head-on, to transform setbacks into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Tasha's focus on the hotel's future remained unwavering throughout these trials. She understood that the path to meaningful change was seldom easy, and that leadership often demanded sacrifices that went beyond the professional realm. Her vision was not merely about preserving a building or turning a profit. It was about creating a space that honored the community's history, while embracing innovation and inclusivity. It was about healing old wounds and forging new opportunities, about crafting a legacy that would endure long after the noise of criticism had faded. Holding on to this vision gave her purpose and perspective. It allowed her to rise above the clamor of negativity and keep her eyes on the horizon, where the future she dreamed of was slowly taking shape. Each difficult conversation, each moment of isolation was balanced by a renewed commitment to her goals, a commitment that became a source of strength in itself. Tasha's personal struggles were a testament to the complex realities of leadership and change. They revealed the emotional costs often hidden behind public success and highlighted the vital role of connection and support in weathering such storms. Her story was one of resilience in the face of adversity, of finding light in darkness, and of the profound power of community in sustaining hope and courage. As she continued to navigate the challenges ahead, Tasha carried with her the lessons learned through hardship, the importance of vulnerability, the necessity of trust, and the unwavering belief that with the right support, even the most daunting obstacles could be overcome. Her journey was not just about the hotel or the business. It was about the human spirit's capacity to endure, adapt, and ultimately triumph, fueled by love, determination, and an unshakable vision for a better tomorrow. Months had passed since the storm that had shaken Tasha's world and tested the very core of her beliefs. The hotel, once a symbol of dreams deferred and battles fought in the shadows, now stood reborn, radiating a fresh, vibrant energy that was impossible to miss. As Tasha stood in the grand lobby, the sunlight filtering through the large windows illuminated not only the elegant decor, but also the weight of everything she had endured to get here. This reopening was far more than a business milestone. It was the culmination of a journey marked by resilience, courage, and an unshakable commitment to values that had guided her through the darkest days. Values of respect, equality, and excellence. The transformation was evident in every detail. The polished floors gleamed underfoot, reflecting the warmth of the new spirit that infused the space. But it was not just the physical makeover that mattered. The true renewal came from the people, Tasha's carefully assembled team, each member chosen not just for their skills but for their alignment with her vision. Here the workplace was more than a collection of employees. It was a community built on trust, mutual respect, and shared purpose. Tasha had insisted on creating an environment where every voice was heard, where equality was not a buzzword but a lived reality, and where excellence was pursued not through pressure or fear, but through empowerment and collaboration. This new approach was a radical departure from the culture that had once threatened to consume the hotel, and with it, Tasha's dreams. She remembered the days of conflict and tension, the moments when she doubted whether she could hold everything together, but instead of succumbing to despair, she leaned into her convictions, determined to forge a new path that honored her values and redefined success on her own terms. That determination was contagious, inspiring those around her to believe that they could be part of something meaningful and transformative. As the hotel doors reopened to the public, guests began to arrive, many drawn not only by the promise of comfort and luxury, but by the story that had preceded this rebirth. Word had spread that this was a place where dignity and kindness were as important as service and style, where every guest was treated with genuine care, and where the staff's pride in their work was palpable. The atmosphere buzzed with an authenticity that was rare in the hospitality world. A feeling that this was more than a hotel, it was a home away from home. Tasha's story quickly became a beacon for aspiring entrepreneurs everywhere, particularly those who had faced setbacks or systemic barriers in their own journeys. She embodied the belief that true leadership is not about wielding power over others, but about uplifting those around you, creating spaces where everyone can thrive and contribute their best. Her commitment to equality challenged long-standing norms, proving that businesses could succeed without compromising on principles of fairness and respect. Her unwavering pursuit of excellence demonstrated that high standards and ethical conduct are not mutually exclusive, but, in fact, reinforce one another. Behind the scenes, Tasha invested deeply in mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing her hard-won wisdom and encouraging them to embrace leadership that is both strong and compassionate. She spoke openly about the importance of resilience, reminding others that setbacks were not endpoints but stepping stones to growth. Her journey from adversity to achievement became a source of hope, a living testament that integrity and perseverance could create opportunities even in the most challenging circumstances. As months turned into seasons, the hotel flourished, not just as a business, but as a symbol of what is possible when values lead the way. The team's morale soared, guests returned time and again, and the community around them began to take notice. Local organizations reached out to partner on initiatives promoting social equity, sustainability, and cultural inclusion, further embedding the hotel into the fabric of the city's progress. Tasha often paused to reflect on how far she had come. The road had been far from easy, marked by moments of doubt, betrayal, and sacrifice. Yet every obstacle had strengthened her resolve, sharpened her vision, and deepened her compassion. She knew that the success she now enjoyed was not hers alone. It belonged to everyone who had believed in the possibility of a better way, everyone who had dared to dream of a business world guided by heart as much as strategy. Her story resonated because it was real and relatable. It spoke to anyone who had ever felt overlooked or undervalued, to anyone who had struggled to balance ambition with authenticity. Tasha's triumph was proof that leadership rooted in respect and equality could transform not only a company, but an entire industry's culture. It was an invitation to others to rethink what success truly means, and to imagine a future where excellence and ethics go hand in hand. In the grand lobby, where the sunlight now streamed freely through the windows, Tasha saw not just a hotel but a living legacy, a place where dreams were rebuilt on solid ground, where people were empowered to be their best selves, and where the values of respect, equality, and excellence shaped every experience. Her new beginning was a story still unfolding. But one thing was clear. It was a story of hope, transformation, and the enduring power of leading with heart. Through her vision and courage, Tasha had not only reopened a hotel, she had opened a door to a better future, inspiring countless others to step through and create their own new beginnings, grounded in the values that truly matter.